So getting started with CadworxLIVE, what is CadworxLIVE? So CadworxLIVE is a free online design software that is available through the group Stahl companies. So anyone that has an account with Transfer Express, Stahls, any of our Stahls companies can potentially be a CadworxLIVE user. CadworxLIVE, it's web-based, so it's www.cadworxlive.com. If you want to go there, you can take a look at it. You'll see what it has, but it has graphic design tools. It has tons of clip art, royalty-free artwork that you can use, and then some production software that will allow you to output directly from the app to a vinyl cutter. So that's it in a nutshell. There are some really good tools that are available in it. And there are some really great starting points, which is what we're really going to focus on today. And we'll talk about the different things that you can do with it. The software itself, or the design setup itself, is only as powerful as the user, but it's very intuitive and pretty easy to learn. And you can do some very creative things with it if you play around with it, spend a little bit of time. So let's talk about some of the benefits. So what are the advantages of CadworxLIVE? There's a few. One of the biggest advantages of CadworxLIVE, I truly believe, is the fact that it is an online resource and it's a website. So you do not have to download any software. And what that means is not only does it not take up space on your computer, you also don't have to update it every, so often you'll get a Corel update or you'll get a Adobe update, and you have to, do a refresh or an update. You don't have to do that with CadworxLIVE because it's an online platform. When we push an update, it's in the platform. When you log in, it's there. So you don't have to worry about any of that. You can rest assured that every time you log in, you're getting the latest and the greatest, whether we had clip art or fonts, that sort of thing. You can access it anywhere. So you don't have to buy 5 licenses or install 5 different licenses on 5 different computers because you have 5 people that could potentially be using this. CadworxLIVE, because it's web-based, you can design it, at your desktop. You can design at your kitchen table at home. You can design at the airport while you're waiting to catch a flight. It's, anywhere that you have internet access, you'll be able to do it. And one of the biggest advantages about CadworxLIVE is it frees up your artists. This is not a design software for a powerful, avid artist. They're going to be very bored in here and maybe even a little bit frustrated. This is really a templated type-based program for people like myself who do not have an art background, did not study in design, and need to be able to create text and numbers, mascots, simple designs that, a normal, I don't want to say a normal, but, a simple type thing for schools, teams, those types of designs that you need to create. And what it's going to do is it's going to free up your artist, or the money that you invest if you're using an offsite artist. It will free that up so that you can get some of these other more simple things done and free up your artist to work on the more complex designs with the full colors and the gradients and the shadings and all the unusual shapes. So that's CadworxLIVE in a nutshell as far as the advantages of it. That being said, again, like I said, it's not a Corel, it's not an Adobe. There are limitations to what it can do. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's definitely a good scratch the surface, a way to get started, a way to be able to create artwork relatively quickly with relatively little knowledge. So with that, we're going to go over to the actual software itself, or the website itself, and I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second to do that, and then we'll walk through it a little bit. So when you go to CadworxLIVE initially, this is where it's going to start, cadworxlive.com. It's going to tell you how many millions of designs customers have created in it. and there'll be all different kinds of information in here. The first thing that you're going to have to do is, if you don't already have an account or a login, you're going to have to sign up for one. It's very easy. Sign up now. We're going to click this green button. Once it goes to the sign up page, it's literally going to ask you for basic information. This was that page that we talked about before. You know, what it is, what can you make, all the different things. When you go to the sign up now, let's see why it didn't do that the first time. Let's try it again. Sorry. When you go to sign up now, typically, here we go. You're creating an account. So it's going to ask you a first name and last name. You're going to create a username, an email address, and a password. Confirm that you're not a robot. Accept the terms and conditions of the website. And you're going to get a verification email sent to the email that you register on that's going to have a verification code on it. You'll go to your email, copy that, plug that back into that verification information screen that you'll get, and voila, it will allow you into the application to use it. So it's really that simple. It takes, you know, like I said, 5 minutes to set up an account. No money's exchanged, no credit card information, nothing like that. Just username, password, and that sort of information. So pretty simple. Once you have an account, you can just click on up here, log in. And I'm going to sign in, and you can see my username and password is already saved there for me. So I'm going to click log in. Oh, snap, I have an error. My account is already in use. That's because I had it open a few minutes ago and I don't think it refreshed. So it's just saying, please confirm that you still want to log in, and I do. So I clicked yes. Okay, so once you log in, you're on the main login page, and there are a ton of things on here that you can do when you get started. But we're going to, like I said, we're going to go through the basics. The first thing that I'm going to show you is the easy team. So up here, you're going to see dashboard, which is what you're always going to end on. You can put an avatar in here if you want your picture to be in here. You can create profiles with all different kinds of information. I don't have any of that set up, but you can if you want to. But your tools are going to start here: design, artwork, education, and support. So design is where you're going to do all of your designing. Artwork is where you're going to see your files, your favorites. Any artwork that you use frequently will all be there if you want to pull for it. Education is going to be video training. So videos where you can watch how to create different effects or things through it. Creations and idea galleries, which also shows things that other customers may have created that they've added to there. So if you want to look through some of that to get some ideas or some inspiration. And then our Stahls TV video links, our CAD-cut tip jar, which is a lot of really great CAD-cut information, and then just our social media in general at Stahls. So that's all the video. A lot of that's also available on the Stahls website, but you can access it from here also. And then support. Frequently asked questions, again, knowledge base, which will include different information. Submit a ticket if you're having a problem, and downloads if you've downloaded anything or you need to download something. And then if you need to make contact with support. Everything within the CadworxLIVE platform is all web-based. So any support that you need as far as assistance goes, we request that you contact through the application, and someone will get in contact with you and support you any way that they can. And they're awesome. They'll definitely walk you through. You can also contact our customer service team. We have a lot of people that have some really great knowledge on CadworxLIVE and can walk you through some simple things. It looks like we have a couple of questions. So before I go into the actual designing, I'll stop for a second and see what we have. Will we be adding any new clip art and templates anytime soon? That's a really great question, Howard. Thank you for asking it. The CadworxLIVE design platform is meant to be ever changing. So I don't know of an actual plan to add anything immediately, but I do know that the idea is that we will continue to add and expand. So I'll definitely share that feedback that you're looking for some new things, and see if there's any plans to do that. Another question that we have from Reginald is, can you use these designs to convert to use with rhinestones? So if you're talking about designing and creating the rhinestone templates that have the various holes in it, there's 8 ways to Sunday that you can create that, but you can potentially create a file in CadworxLIVE that you can export into a rhinestone software that you're using, or some of those quick macros that CorelDRAW has to create rhinestone templates in. So you can create basically the line art in CadworxLIVE and export it into a format that'll allow you to create some of that. But there isn't anything that I'm aware of in CadworxLIVE that's going to let you, that's going to create a rhinestone template from the beginning. Let me see if there's any more. I think those are it. Oh, one more. Talking about printing. Yeah, so Danielle asked in the very beginning, are we going to review printing as far as getting the artwork to actually cut from the printer? And I was not going to touch on that today. That's a little bit of an advance. So CadworxLIVE has the capacity to do a print cut, like if you're printing paper, where you can print with registration marks and then take it over to a cutter and cut an outline of it, kind of like a print cut. And that's a little bit more in depth. That's also something that would be very well demonstrated with an actual cutter, so we can show the registration marks and all of that fun stuff. So I do apologize, but that's not something that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so if we go to design, we're going to hover over design, and you're going to see 3 things. You're going to see Launch Design Studios 2.2 and Launch Easy Teams. So Design Studio is where you'll do 80% of your designing. And it might change next week to Studio 2.3. And in a month, it might say 3.0. As we update and come out with new versions, new tips, new tools, we just update the number there. So rest assured, whichever one you're logging into, it'll always be the most recent one. And then we have the Easy Teams. The Easy Teams is by far, in my opinion, worth its weight in gold as far as CadworxLIVE goes. So if we click on Launch Easy Teams, I'm going to show this to you first. Easy Teams is the place that you can create your rosters of teams, names, and numbers. So if you have to do a team of 10 or a team of 24 or 36 names on the back of shirts, or names and numbers, player combinations, you can relatively quickly in the Easy Teams set that up with all the parameters in it, and then get a exportable file that you can cut onto your vinyl cutter and have your names and numbers all ready to go for heat application onto your jerseys. When you get into the Easy Teams, you're going to see the start. It's automatically going to start at the start point. Novel idea. But you can do a new team project, or you can open an existing team project. So if you're in the midst of working on something and you want to go back to it, you'll open something you've already done, or you can start a new one. We're going to start a new one. You have a couple different ways that you can add the names and numbers to this CadworxLIVE window. You can type down here where it says name and number, and you can just type in, Johnson and tab 23, and notice as soon as I do that, it's going to give me a preview of what basic information. Nothing in here is set already. No font, no sizing, nothing. Just Johnson 23 on the screen. Okay. The easiest way when you're doing a list of teams is usually your clients will provide you with some sort of file that has a list of names and numbers in it. So the easiest way to get all of that into CadworxLIVE is to import it. And there's, again, a few different ways. You can import a text file, or you can type it here or copy here. So I think a lot of our customers probably just send us either Excel files or an email document a lot of times. So I can take from my email, I have one that someone sent me, and I can just copy and paste that into here. Okay, so now you see I have a list of names over here, and I have Johnson preview on my screen. Now, I don't want this font. So easy, on this tab up here, we're going to click Style. I'm going to either apply a name style. I can create name styles. Let's say you always do, the high school team, Jaguars, and you use the same name and number font. You can create that as a style, save it in here, and every single time you or one of your employees set up something for them, you're just going to pick that style, and so it's going to apply it. But we're starting from scratch. So we're just going to click Edit. It's going to take us into this pop-up window that's going to ask me to choose basically color, font, and size. Pretty simple. If I click on the down arrow next to the font, it's going to take me to a screen that shows me a whole bunch of fonts. Our fonts are organized by category. So there's Greek, there's headlines, there's numbers, so on and so forth. We're going to go with athletic. And I'm just going to pick something. I'm going to choose Octon College. I'm going to click OK, and my preview in this screen changed. Now, let's say I want this name to be arched. The arching is an effect that we're going to add, and this is going to be the same in the designer as it's going to be in Easy Teams. So anytime I want to add an effect to something, I just click this little plus button here that says Add Effect, and then it takes me to a bunch of basic effects, but I want an arch. So I'll click on that, click on this, click open, and now my Johnson is arched. I have my height at 2 inches. I can change that by typing something in here. I have my width at 12. I can make it 14. I can just go ahead and notice it'll adjust every little bit I go. If I want a 2 color, this is going to be the same in the designer as it's going to be in Easy Teams. We can go to the contour. This window here is always going to default to the most frequently used, which is great because contours and arches are probably some of the most frequently used ones. But I can just click on small contour, click OK. Here I can, where it says fill, I can click on a color. Let's say I want black or white, or black and red. I can click OK, and it's going to add a red outline to my Johnson. In the advanced settings, I have the opportunity to get rid of any cavities. So let's say I don't want the hole in the O in Johnson. I can click no holes, and it'll fill them in. I can add a contour to the inside instead of the outside. And I can also increase the size of my contour. So it defaults to 0.1. Let's say I want something a little bit thicker. I can up it to 0.15 and it'll include it. And then I would click no holes. So we've got that and we're good to go. Okay. Once I'm happy with the way that looks, I can click OK. And then the greatest thing about the Easy Teams is if I click on this next magnifying glass, I apologize, next to Smith, it's going to show me what Smith will look like. It's going to show me what Roberts is going to look like. It's going to show me what Sessler is going to look like, on and on. So I can see relatively quickly that the design that I just created is applied to everything that I have created in the names, okay? The other amazing thing about this is when you go over to the options button, you can put in here global width constraints. So let's say, obviously, a name like Smith is never going to be as long as Johnson. But let's say you have a name like Wojciechowski or something that has 14 or 15 characters in it. It will definitely expand the width out. But we can say, you know, we don't want it to be any more than 14 inches. And what will happen is when we put in those really long names that have a lot of multiple characters in it, it will automatically squish it down or squeeze it, and it'll make the letters a little narrower and thinner, but it'll squeeze it down so that it won't go beyond 14 inches, because that's the constraint that you're going to have on the jersey. And that's in the options, and it'll only squeeze it. It'll never stretch. It'll just squeeze. You can also set the gap that you have between a name and a number. So it defaults to 1. A lot of customers use 1.5 to start, but that's an option when you do a player combo. So I will show you how to do that in a second. It's basically the same idea, but you have that option. And then the other thing that's amazing about the teams, the easy teams, is not only do you have it already set up now where you can export this entire roster to a cutter through Vector Cut or to a plotter file to cut, but you can also download a preview. So if you click this download a preview button and you click OK, it's going to download and open up, allow you to open up a PDF file that has the preview on it. And my downloads are blocked, so it's not popping up. But it's a typical download pop-up that you'll get, and it's a PDF file that you can then send to your customer for proofing. So if you want the customer to sign off, this is the way you want them to look, and this is the way you want all the names spelled, and all these numbers are correct. CadworxLIVE makes that very, very, very easy for you. So you just download the current item preview. It's a PDF. You can save it and send it to your customer to get them to sign off on it. So it's super, super simple. If we want to do player combos, we can come over here and we can just type in numbers. Or we could have uploaded numbers when we did these before. Either way. I'm just throwing some things in here. Now notice when I add a number, my number is not formatted to my name. And this is by design. Lots of customers use different formatting for names and numbers. Sometimes they'll do 2 color names, 1 color number. Sometimes they'll use a different font. Obviously, they'll use a different size. So that's in my styles, and I can edit number of selected items. So if I click edit the number, I can then do the same thing that I did before, where I can choose athletic fonts, and I can use the same one, or I can use a different one. And I can change the color. Let's say I want the numbers to be red. And now I have Ceslar 46. And again, I can still export this as a huge roster. And again, it'll change everything as we go through and it renders. So we've got Johnson, we've got Smith, we have Roberts, so on and so forth. It's always centered, always set up. You can adjust the sizing and then output it to a cutter or to a downloadable file. So we did, we kind of went a little quick there, but I just wanted you to see the gist of names and the gist of names and numbers so that you could pretty much understand how quickly and easily you could set up a team for someone like me that has no art capacity whatsoever. That was pretty painless. So we have a couple of questions. So Joy is asking, how do you send it to your cutter? Joy, there is in CadworxLIVE, depending on what kind of cutter you are using, there's a variety of different ways that you can do that. So in CadworxLIVE, there is a program that you would download, and it's free, but it's called Vector Cut. And Vector Cut will interact directly with your, it's a RIP software basically, that'll interact directly with your Roland or your GraphTech or many other plotters. You download that and you can cut directly from Vector Cut. If you're using other other types of cutters, specifically some of the craft cutters or some of the other cutters that don't necessarily work with vector cut, I would always try vector cut first. You can, in your output, you can export it as a plotter file or a PLT file. And a PLT file is pretty much a global language that you can then bring into whatever sort of RIP software that you're using with your cutter. You can take a plotter file and import it into Corel, so on and so forth. So depending on how you're cutting is going to depend on how you'll get it to your cutter. Leo is asking, how do we transfer the artwork to Stahls or Transfer Express? That's a really great question, Leo. I'm going to, when I go to the design side, I'm going to show you how to export it as a file. On the design file, you can export a PDF, you can export a PLT, you can export a scalable vector graphic, which are all acceptable file formats that you can then email or submit to Stahls or Transfer Express for cutting or creation of transfers. But I'll show you that when we go over to the design side in just a minute. And then Deborah's asking, where do you pick the color? So in the Easy Teams application, when you are creating a style, and if we edit the name style, we will pick the color here. So if I want to change the Roberts from black to something different, let's say I want to do orange, I click this little button here, fill this little button here, and it'll change the color. On the design side, it's a little bit different, but I'll show you that in a second. When you are doing the contour, if I click on this contour button, let's say I want to change this contour color. Notice when I click on arch, it shows me all the choices I made for that effect. When I click on the T, it shows me all the choices I made for the text part of it. And when I click on contour, it shows me all the choices I made for the contour. So if I want to change the color of this contour, I click on contour in this, my toolbox, so to speak, and then I click on this fill color, and then I can choose blue. And now it'll change my background color to blue. So now I have an orange and blue option. Now, if I wanted to do that, I would need to make the same adjustment for the number. So if I just click edit, if I click edit number style, I can then change this to, let's say, that same blue, if orange and blue is the school colors. So that's a pretty quick way to change colors. Let's see, what other questions are we getting? For the names and numbers, yeah, if you're cutting on a non-roll fed cutter, you would have to decide which is going to be the best and what's going to fit on your base. So if you're cutting on a roll fed cutter, you can export the whole entire list and then through vector cut send the whole entire thing to cut down the roll of your cutter. If you are cutting on a smaller surface, let's say you have like a flatbed cutter or a craft cutter, you're probably not going to be able to cut a whole bunch of names at the same time. You can export the file, the PLT file, in one continuous file, but when you go to send it to your cutter, you're only going to send what will fit on the mat or the space that you have. So you would need to do, you may be able to do more than one at a time, but it's going to depend on your mat size. And when you export this through vector cut or anything, you'll see, it'll show you what the sizing is. So you can only export, obviously, and cut what you can cut in the space that you have available. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Oh, Danielle says her computer's freezing up. I mean, mine's not, so I'm hoping that it's not my issue, but let's see. We can definitely look at the webinar jam. Is anyone else having that issue? Yes, we're getting the same questions on the craft cutters, the Cricut, the Silhouette, the Cameo. So anything that's a matte cutter, the cutter itself is going to cut whatever you send to it. If you don't have material availability there to cut a long list of names, you're not going to want to send them all at one time. You can export the file all at once, and then when you send it through your Cricut software or your Select software or your Cameo software, you can do one at a time in order to change out your material. So, okay. All right. So let's go back to the design side. So I'm going to get out of Easy Teams. I'm just going to X out of here, and it's going to take me back to the CadworxLIVE, the main screen. And now I'm going to go to the Design 2.2. Okay. And this is where all the other design things are available. There is a lot in here, and we're not going to get through everything today because there's a lot here to see, but I'd like to cover some of the basic things that customers use, or the most common things that you can do with CadworxLIVE. So when you go to CadworxLIVE Design 2.2, the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to pop up this little window on the inside that says, what do you want to start with? I'm one of those people that this just annoys me. So I just X out of it because everything I need is on this left-hand side. You can start from there if you want. It's basically the same things that you have here. It's kind of like that Corel window that first pops up in the beginning that says, how do you want to start? I just want a blank page. So that's me. That's my OCD, or my annoyance, if you will. But I just X'd out of that. So on the left-hand side, we have all these different options that are available. So we have add text, which is just very simple text. Add clip art, again, all different kinds of clip art. Import images. If you have vector files of clip art that you use for different things and you want to use it in CadworxLIVE, you can import it in here, make it a piece of your artwork that you can then access. Templates. There's all kinds of templates in here that include text and all different kinds of clip arts and mascots and things like that. And we'll go through some of that. Circle text is basically what it is. You want text going in a circle. Could be around something, could be half of something. And then athletic tails. These are the most popular, streamlined, quick, easy things that you can do in CadworxLIVE. There's other things in here that you can do, but these are the hot buttons. So let's start with adding text. We'll make it really simple, and we'll keep going. If you click add text, you're going to get that same box that you saw when we were editing the styles for names and numbers. So you can choose and type in here your text, and let's say I want to put a team name. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do, it's going to change my preview as I keep going. I'm going to change my font. Same thing. Click that little T next to that. It's going to pull up the font categories. Let's do something a little bit more different because we did the athletic fonts for the names and numbers. So let's go to, I like the fun fonts. Sometimes they're fun. And let's just pick something. I like this one. And it changed the font on my Jaguars. Okay. I don't want the Jaguars to be 1 inch, 2 inches. I want it to be, let's say 3.5. It's going to go on the full front. And I don't want the color to be black. I want the color to be, this blue's pretty. That looks like a good blue for Jaguars. Okay. So that's the basic setting up text. Now, depending on what you're doing with this, when you go to export this, if you're not printing this, it doesn't matter what color it is on your screen. If you're going to cut it on a cutter, because it's gonna churn out whatever color material you put on the machine. So some people never change the color because they're always cutting, and it doesn't matter. Some people always change the color because, like me, I need the visualization. I need to know what color it's supposed to be. And when you're exporting proofs for clients, you're going to want to kind of give them a good rendition of what the color is going to be also. So that's text, simple text. Now, again, remember I said you can add all kinds of effects. So if I want to add an effects to this text, I'm just going to click the Add Effect button, and it's going to take me into a whole bunch of different options for you. And these are, in this page, again, these are the most common ones that are selected. But if you go through these folders, it's also narrowed them down for you. So if you know you want an envelope, for instance, which an envelope is everything except an arch. So it could be a bridge, it could be an italics, it could be, they're all different kinds of shapes that you can add on text. So let's say I want to do one of those. I would click on envelope and it would give me all these different options. I really like the bridge, so I'm going to click on that. And it's going to change my Jaguars to a bridge. I can play with the horizontal and the vertical fits to change the shape of that envelope if I want. I'm not going to, but you can. And again, this is the time to, play around and see what you can do in here. If I want to remove this effect, I just hit minus and it goes away. So, but we'll go back to that. I'll add an envelope to it because I like that one. And then if I want to add a contour, let's say I want this to be a 2-color, I'll go back to my contour. I can do a small contour or a large contour. I usually go small because I can always adjust it. And then I'm going to change my contour color again by clicking this fill. Let's see, we'll do a darker blue. And then I want a thicker border. I like a little bit thicker to give us a little oomph there. I can increase that. And now once it's done rendering, you can see I'll have a Jaguars with a teal and a blue contour in kind of a bridge type format. Okay, so that's on my screen. Now, it's automatically going to default up here. It's going to tell me my size. So this is telling me right now my width is about 13.25. My height is 4.39. So that gives me a good idea. I want to change the color of my background. So I want to see what this is going to look like on a black shirt, just to give me an idea. Down here at the very bottom under the document information, it says description area color, and it'll default to white or transparent. I can click this and it'll pull up a scale, and I can choose a black and click OK, and it'll change my background. So that gives me a good idea of what I'm looking at. I'm going to put it back to transparent just so that you can see the difference, but you can always change that. Again, if you're going to be showing something to a client, it definitely helps them to visualize. All right, that's text. Sweet, simple, and easy. Okay, now let's talk about clip art. I think this looks kind of plain, and I want to add a piece of clip art to this. So I'm going to click Add Clip Art. Notice all the folders that come up here. So there's tons and tons and tons of folders that have, again, they're narrowed down by category into all different kinds of things. And you'll see, the most frequently used or the most recently used ones will pop up here. But you can always go into things down here. So you've got celebrations, you have holidays, there's patterns, there's mascots, sports, which is going to include your basketballs, baseballs, footballs, that sort of thing. So let's say we want to do Jaguars football. So I'm going to click on the sports. And when it loads, it's going to show me a ton of stuff. Now, you always have the option to search. And each one of these categories is a search button. So if I want to search for a football, I can type football in there. Well, it would help if I spelled it right. And click the search button, and it'll pull up anything that we deemed could potentially be football. So you can see I have actual footballs, I have football helmets, I have football players, I have a soccer ball because we know in Europe that's called football. So you can see all the different things that are available. But I'm just going to pick a quick and easy football. I'm going to click open. Once I do that, it's going to load and add it to my page. And then I can change the size. I can change the color. I can change the orientation of it. I can do whatever I want with it once it's on my page. And I don't know where did it go. Oh, it's there, but we're not seeing it for some reason. Let me see if I change the color, if that will work. There it is. Sorry about that. So actually that football looks pretty good size-wise within that Jaguars, but I want to see if I draw a box around the whole thing, it's going to show me, yeah, it's 13¼ inches by 9, which that's pretty good size for a full front. It may not necessarily look like that on my screen, but that's a pretty good size for a full front. If I want to change the color of the football, I can just click on it and I can go over to my color palette on this side and I can change it. I can add a background to the football also, just like we did with Jaguars. Anytime you want to edit something that's on your screen here, you're going to select it so you have the marching ants around it, and then click on this edit tool up top. And you'll hit edit object, and now I can add an effect. Whenever you open this window, you're going to double check that this is the object you want to edit. So this window will always be the key to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So if I want to add an effect to this, I can click that. I can click I'm going to do my large contour. It's going to render. And I apologize, this is taking a little bit longer, but I'm on a home internet. So, you know, everyone's working from home. I can change the color just by clicking on that color. We had a royal. Let's go there. There we go. And so I'm going to change this to a royal background. And if I want to fill the whole thing in, I can make the background bigger, or I can click the no holes and it'll take all that space away. So it'll be a nice blue background behind there. While that's doing that, oh, here, let's do no holes. Let me see what kind of questions we have. So Julie's asking, when you have a contour, is that cutting different items? Yes. So when you are cutting anything that's multiple color, you'll have to load up 2 different colors of material. So you'll cut in different, you'll cut the cyan first. So you'll load up the cyan material, you'll send all of that and cut that on your cutter. And then you go and load up the royal blue, for instance, and then send all the background at the same time and cut all that. So yes, you have to cut it. Unless you're printing, whenever you're doing 2 colors, you're going to be cutting multiple pieces. I'm just trying to get it so that it's a solid background, but you can see I can keep increasing this. Let's see. Is there a character limit in the text field? That's a good question. I'm not certain that there is one. You're just going to have to keep in mind that the more text you add and the size that you have, it's just going to make it thinner and thinner and thinner. So you want to be cautious that you don't put so many in there that it's going to make it so thin that it's going to be a headache for you when it comes to actually weeding away that excess material. Leo's asking, I have a JPEG file. Would I be able to upload it and add it to my image and then make it a vector file? There is a vectorization tool available in CadworxLIVE that you can use. It takes a little finessing. It's not, it's going to vectorize the file and you'll have line art, but you may have to do some shape editing or node editing, because anytime you do anything with a JPEG, and I'm not looking at the file, but you can vectorize in CadworxLIVE. There is a vectorization tool in here, but again, you may not get a super crisp. You might have to play around with it a little bit. But we're going to click OK. Let me see if there's any other questions. What's this last one? Will you show how to send more than one color to the cutter? I cannot do that, Deborah. I do apologize. I don't have a cutter set up here at home, and the vector cut software registers with the cutter. So it would be very difficult for me to show you with my current situation, how to send to Cutter. But basically, if you're using Vector Cut or any RIP software, when you take two colors over, it should literally show you the two colors on the screen. And you should be able to select in one way or the other which color you want to send. Sometimes it's a checkbox. Sometimes it's a select the color that you want to send to the cutter and then send it to cut. And then you cut it, do it, and then go back to the next one. It's really going to depend on what software you're using. So if I had the Vector Cut set up to a cutter, I could show you, but I don't. So I do apologize for that. Okay. So we've covered the easy teams. We covered adding clip art. We covered adding text. Simple, right? So let's just say I want to go to File, New. I'm going to start with a blank screen. Now I'm going to show you. The athletic tails, and then we'll go back to the templates and the circle text, because the templates and the circle text really draw from a lot of what I've showed you with the clip art and the text. And the tails, athletic tails, is something a little different that I think, we're still getting customers and clients that are doing script with tails for athletic teams. So I think it's worth a show. And then that way there, if anyone needs to bow out or do something different, you're not missing this, and then we'll circle back. So if you click on athletic tails, it's going to drop you into a folder that shows you a variety of different designs. And there's all different kinds of styles. There's all different kinds of tails. But we're just going to start with simple. So we're going to click open. When I select the tail, notice I have the tail. There's an undo button. So if I click up here, I can undo it and it'll move it back, which is amazing. When we first started with CadworxLIVE, there was not an undo button. And that was very frustrating. So when you click on the athletics, I have a team and it's not athletics. I want to change this name. So I'm going to click on it till I have the marching ants around the outside. I'm going to click my edit. I'm going to click edit object because I want to edit this object. I'm confirming this is the object I want to edit by what's happening on my screen here. And now I'm going to change my text to Ramblers. Oops, and I'm going to do a capital R and lowercase everything else. Okay. I want to see what my other options are for my script texts. I like the script jet, or this is closest to our Stahls athletic script, which is a very traditional script, which I like, but let's see what else is available. If I click on fonts, notice all the way down at the bottom, close to the bottom, we have a folder that says script. So if I click on that, it's going to show me a variety of different scripts that we have. So we have the athletic, which is what we already have, but we also have a brush, which is also very popular. This Catholic schoolgirl is kind of popular too. It's more of a elementary looking, almost like handwritten, and Brody is very popular also. So let's go with Brody and see what that turns out. So that looks pretty nice. I like the way that looks. Again, I can change the size here. I can change the color. Ramblers are navy and gold. So I'm going to change my Ramblers to navy. I'm going to add my contour by clicking add effect, add a contour. And it's going to add it, and I'm going to change the color to a gold. And I'm going to click OK. And now I have this Ramblers gold, right? Okay, looks good. Now I want to do the same thing to the tail. So the first thing I want to do is I want to change the tail to navy, which, let's see. Where's navy? Is this navy? Gotta be this one. No, not pink. Navy. There we go. Pretty close. I want to add a contour to it. So I'm going to do edit, edit object, add effect, add a contour, change the contour color to gold, which we decided was this one. And now I have a tail and a word. I'm going to move the tail down, and I can do that by using my arrow keys, or I can drag and drop it with the center. Okay. There's a couple different ways that you can do this script with tail. I'm doing it this way. I'm going to show you this way. Ideally, you would probably want to do it a little different because we initially want this blue tail connected to this blue ramblers. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you the right way. Sorry, I didn't think about this before. So if I click on this and I just edit, I could just undo it, but edit object, I want to remove effect. So I'm going to click on the contour. I'm going to click remove effect, and it's going to get rid of it. I'm going to do the same thing on ramblers. Edit object, click on contour, remove effect. Easy peasy. So let's go up here. I'm going to connect this tail to this ramblers. So it's overlapping over here. And then I want to go use my shaping tool, and I want to do a weld. So if I weld this together, notice now my tail is now connected. So it's all one piece. And when you do a 2-color with a script with tail, you want to get it all together before you add the contour. Makes more sense. I apologize. I took you down the rabbit hole. Now, when I add my contour effect, I can just choose my small contour and change my color, and it'll add it to everything as a whole. Okay, and then you still have the options to increase the contour size, remove the holes if you want to remove any holes that are in the cavities, which there's really not all that many there, but you can take them out and you can adjust from there. And so we pretty simply have a script with tail. If we want to know the size, we can go here. It's 13 1/4 by about 6 inches. You can rotate it. Let's say we want to rotate this 15 degrees. A lot of times you'll see script rotated on a garment. You can rotate it 15 degrees. You can also cut it straight and rotate it when you put it on the jersey. It's up to you however you want to do it. So it's definitely a different option, but that's a script with tail. So let's see if we have any questions. So the difference between welding and combining, that's a great question. So welding will literally meld 2 objects together. So it creates a seamless connection from one to the other. When you combine something, it's almost like an intersection. So if you have this blue, here, let me undo this. So if I want to take this and combine it, if I go to shaping, and the combine's not going to be available. So let me go back a little bit further. Let me add a contour to this. Let's see. Sorry. I'm trying to decide a good way to show you combining the difference between the two. Let's edit. Let's add a contour. See if this works. Okay, so if I do shaping, for some reason it's not letting me combine. Let me see if I do it in the effect. If I click combine in the effect. Yeah, so you see the difference? So when I combined these two, it literally is almost like the front minus the back. So it literally made it like an outline now. So that gold became part of the blue. And combining, I use a lot when I'm trying to create an outline effect or a gap outline effect. So if we cut this the way it is right now, this is all one piece, everything that you see in white would be a hole. And so when you go to put it on the garment, the only thing that you would have is that outline. So that's the difference between combine and weld. So weld is not taking away anything. It's just making it all one consistent piece without any cuts. Combining is actually combining the two together so you're left with one whole design like this. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see. We talked about that. Can you unweld? You can undo anything. So if you just use the undo button, we can go all the way back to when it was not welded. So I think back to here, we just unwelded it. Let's see. Can you add text to the tail? Yes, you can. And the combine is a really good option for adding text to the tail. So if I want to add text to this tail, I can, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but I can just add text here, All Star, let's say. And I can change my font. We're going to go basic because we want it to be simple and readable. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to change this color so that we can see it. I'm going to make it smaller so that it'll fit in that tail. Okay, so now I have All Star in a tail. And if I wanted it to look like this and I wanted to do two different colors of vinyl, I could certainly do that. But I can also combine them. So if I connect the two here and click shaping, I can click combine, and it now made that All Star essentially a cavity. So when this tail cuts, it'll cut the tail and it'll cut holes there so the garment color would show through. However you want to do it, that's definitely a different way for you. Okay, I do see that in the chat we have posted a video on how to import artwork and vectorize it in CadworxLIVE. Thank you very much. That will be a great tool, resource, and something to watch and kind of take a little bit of time on how to do it. We talked about welding, combining. We talked about unwelding, adding text to the tail. Is there any other questions that I missed? There is an option to upload fonts. If you have a true type font or you have a OFT or anything that's actually a true type font, you can upload your own fonts into CadworxLIVE and use them. I think if you add text, let's see, let me think where that was again. I know there's a place. I'll find it as we go through a little bit more. We do have help sections that will show you how to set up a cutter. It's not going to be on CadworxLIVE. You're going to want to go to the Stahls site, and it'll show you there. I think depending on what cutter you have. I know we have videos for Tech and Roland's, so there definitely is that information. There's also a lot of tutorials for those people who are using craft cutters. So there's a lot of videos there as well. Oh, thank you. Michael's telling me how to add text. So if you add text, he said in the font section, right here, there is a upload font. Yes, down here. Thank you, Michael. So you can click here and upload a font, and it's actually going to ask you, it's going to tell you, you need to find your TTF or your zip file, because fonts are large files, so a lot of times they're zipped. So if you download a font from one of those really great websites out there that has all kinds of free fonts that you can download it and you can upload it into CadworxLIVE. So thank you, Michael, very much for helping me remember where I saw that. Pretty simple. And then it'll be in and I believe it comes up in My Fonts. Yeah, up top here. So there's this folder that says My Fonts and anything. Look, I did it once. See? Horror Master. I probably was doing something for Halloween. Don't know any other reason why I would want Horror Master, but anyway, so you can see that's a font I clearly uploaded. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. What is the wireframe at the bottom? Let me see what that answer is. Wireframe. If you want to change your view so you only see it in wireframe view. So a lot of artists, and I like to do this a lot of times, I like to look at things to see when it's going to cut, how it's going to cut. Like on this instance, for example, when we moved this to wireframe, I can see that it because it's unwelded, I have a cut right here between my E and my R, and I have a cut right here between my R and my S. So when I send this design to the cutter, it's going to put cuts there. It's not going to really be all that visible because they'll just be straight lines, but it'll put cuts there. I'm going to show you templates just so that you can see what's in there. I use this just as an idea board. Sometimes, you know, it ends up being something that's good. It's I would say its likeness is comparable to like an easy template on Transfer Express, although they have hundreds upon thousands more and hundreds of thousands more pieces of clip art. So there's a lot of different things there. Okay, so again, I'm just likening the templates to like a Transfer Express or like a template driven sort of idea. If you have any experience with there, you kind of get what I'm saying. But use my edit up top. I can change the font. I can change the size. I can change the color. I can do whatever I want. So if I want to do a 2020 design, I'm going to click edit. And it's basically going to take me to the clip art because it's asking me, what do you want to replace this piece of clip art with? So if I go to the sports, I can pick, let's just pick a basketball, for instance. And it'll change that to a basketball. And then I can change the color. I can change the size, same as before. I can add a contour to this if I want. Anything that I've already showed you in all the tools that we have available, you can do with the templates. And then you can then export it. I just wanted you to be able to see all the different templates that are available to you. One other tool I want to show you that's going to be important, especially when you're doing and you're adding your own designs or your own text and clip art, is the alignment tools. So let's say I made this basketball a little bit smaller because I want it a little bit smaller. I want it to look different. Ideally, I would want this 2 and this ball to be somewhat centered with each other. So if I want to align these two, I can select both of them so that I have the marching ants around all of them. And up top, we have this alignment menu, and it's going to ask, do you want to align it to the center, to the left, to the right, to the top, to the middle, to the bottom? How do you want it? I can click center, and it'll align it vertically and horizontally, but that's not really what I want in this case. So I can click undo. And we really want to do an alignment so that it's top and bottom aligned. So we're going to do this. Hopefully that's the right one. That's aligned on top. But you can see where the differences go. If I want to align it in the middle, now I've got my 2 and my basketball aligned center to each other. I can do the same with this and this. So let's say I want these centered above each other. I could do the same alignment here, but we do it like this. So there's all different kinds of different things that you can do. I'm going to undo that and put it back where it was. So quickly, I'll go through these menus. In your file menu, you have new and open. So new is start a new one. Open is open and existing. Save as, you can save the file in CadworxLIVE. Import is if you want to import something that you have someplace else. You can import various different file types into CadworxLIVE to use in the CadworxLIVE platform. Import and vectorize. This is back to that. If you want to vectorize, again, we have the video link in the chat, and we'll include it in some of the information that we send out follow-up. But if you want to import and vectorize, that's where you can do it. Export is going to be if you want to export a file. So let's say you create a file, you want to create a proof for your customer. These are all the different file types that you can export. There's vector files, PDF, PLT, and PLTX. These are all universal languages that most types of cutting platforms will read. So if you cannot use VectorCut to export directly to your cutter, you can export it as one of these file types and then use the RIP software that's available with your cutter to send it to. Raster if you just need a picture. So this is going to export a file that then you can use in a different way. And this is a very helpful tool. If you want to do proofs, I would use PDF. And then lastly, you have the send to vector cut, which if you click on this, it will open up the vector cut if you have it installed on your computer. And I do not on this computer, so I apologize. But that's how you'll send it to Cutter. Add is if you're going to add text, shape, or clip art. So that's if you're just adding to a page. It's the same thing that's available by clicking on one of these menu buttons on the left-hand side. So edit, we've got select all, select next, select previous. Those are just your selection tools. I grab everything with my mouse, so I don't use that anymore. Edit object is going to be your best friend. Whenever you're clicked on something, you have marching ants around it, and you want to change anything about it, that's when you're going to use the edit object. Edit style is pretty much the same sort of use. I use edit object mostly. Replace, remember in this design, we use the replace to replace the pom-pom with the basketball. So you get kind of an idea about that. Duplicate is copy. It's basically copy. Rasterize, we talked about that if you're going to print something and you don't want it cut, you want it to be in a raster, you can rasterize or you can vectorize, either way. And then obviously delete. Shaping, we talked about shaping. Weld and combine are the two that you're going to use mostly. Break apart, you can break apart by region, by color, or by curves. That's if you want to change a very simple thing. Let's say I wanted this intersecting line in the middle here to be a different color. You would break this whole entire thing apart, and it would allow you to select the elements and make them different colors. That's getting pretty advanced, and a lot of times when you're breaking things apart, unless you're doing something simple or for a simple reason, usually it's going to be a little bit easier to manipulate in a graphic software program, but it's definitely available for you. Let's see where we were at. Sorry. Mirror. You can mirror in CadworxLIVE if you want. Let's say you wanted something to be backwards. You can mirror in CadworxLIVE. I mirror in my cutting software. So if I'm going to be sending it to a cutter, you're always going to cut it in reverse. I do the mirroring in my RIP software. I don't mirror here. You can if you want. You can mirror horizontal or you can mirror vertical. And then align. So we talked about the different alignments. If you're laying things on top of each other, like let's say we're putting this basketball and we want it on top of the two, you can choose if you want it to be in the front, in the back, and that sort of thing to do some layering. So we've talked about colors. I showed you how to change the tablet space that you have. We talked about the wireframe view. We know where the undo button is. The sizing button is up here. The sizing is only going to display the sizing for the object that you have selected. So in this case, it's only going to show me the size of the ball. If I want the size of everything, I have to draw a big box around everything. If I want to rotate it, here's my rotation. I can rotate counterclockwise or clockwise. Zoom is really helpful. We didn't talk about that. We can zoom in, we can zoom out, or we can zoom to fit. So if we want this to fill up our whole screen, we can zoom to fit. I use that a lot because that's really helpful. So crash course, we went fast toward the end. I showed you a lot of different things, but the basics are there. If you know how to use the add, the edit, the shape, that's a really great start in easy teams. In this time that we're all in right now, where a lot of us are working from home, maybe this is, a side thing, or maybe this is, what you're looking to get into. This is the time to play around, create some designs, make some mistakes, have some fun, and utilize CadworxLIVE. There's a lot you can do in here if you get a little bit creative. And again, you don't have to be an artist in any way, shape, or form. So I'm just checking to see if we have any other questions before I let you go, since we are way over the time, but I do appreciate you all staying. Yeah, so Diana is asking, if you save it as a PLT, can you import it into Twill Stitch Pro? Absolutely. Yeah, Twill Stitch Pro will accept a PLT. When you export a PLT from CadworxLIVE, it will be a vector line file that you can then go ahead and use the Twill Stitch Pro if you need to. Import an EPS file. Let me see what file types you can import. So you can import bitmaps. These are raster images. So bitmaps, GIFs, JPEGs, SVGs, PNGs, CDRs, CADX, which is CadWorx, or PDFs. So you cannot import a EPS file, but you can, from Adobe, export it as a PDF and then import it. Deborah's asking what adding a print cutout line is. That's if you're using a print cut situation. So if you're going to print a raster image and you're going to go back and cut a line on it, that's what that's for. That's a more advanced use of cutting and printing software. Oh, and where is the vector cut software? So let me just see. I'm pretty sure support. If you go to support and you go to downloads, vector cut is right here. So on your main CadworxLIVE page, you go to the support, you hover, you go all the way down to downloads, and there is vector cut. So there's vector cut 2.0, vector cut 3.0, and vector cut Mac. It shows you pretty simply here what you need or what it will work with. So vector cut 3.0 works with GraphTech, GCC cutters, Roland, Silhouette, and Universal HPGL. So any cutter that's a Universal HPGL, and you can, your system requirements, it says Windows 7, 8, 10. And then the 2.0 works with similar, but not everything. And then the vector cut Mac. So that's for customers that are using specifically cutting from a Mac. And that's pretty new for us. So that's where the downloads are, and that's what it's used with. It's a free download. So, okay. I think that we are good. Like I said, we've covered a lot of things. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for answering all my polls and asking all the questions. You guys have been a great audience. Obviously, I'm sure you guys know, but we're doing webinars very regularly during the week now. Daily, we're doing Facebook Live videos and all kinds of other education. So our goal right now is to give as many educational resources to our customers as possible and help you to stay busy or just educate yourself and keep on the pulse with everything that's happening. So I thank you all for attending. Thank you very much for spending a good hour, 15 minutes with me. And I hope you are all staying safe and healthy. Take care.